In Japan, there are essentially two schools of thought on the line to be used in tenkara fishing. One group of anglers prefers the traditional furled line, which is tapered throughout its length. And it's got a very delicate presentation. It's very supple. If you're presenting a dry fly and you want to minimize your drag, it's ideal for that. And it's also going to land very softly because it has a little bit more body to it, so it's going to levitate down as the line approaches the water. Now this is the traditional tenkara line, which is essentially a furled line. This has its origins back in the day when they used to furl horsehair together to make a fly line for tenkara. Nowadays, of course, they're made of monofilament for the most part. At the end of your furl line, you're going to have a little loop. And to attach it to the tip of the rod, it's extremely simple. It's all you do is just a little hitch with your line. So passing the line through the loop, you have a hitch. Then you fit it over the tip of the tenkara rod, the lilian, always leaving the hard tip inside, and then you tighten it. Then you're set to set it up. All you do is start slipping the pieces through your fingers. Again, ask the question, how tight does it have to be? It's just going to be a little bit snug, just a little bit snug, very little pressure. And then you pull it out. You do not want to pull it very tight because then it's going to be very hard to pull it back together and just push it in. And the other group of anglers in Japan prefers a level line. They have special formulas of fluorocarbon that make it a little bit stiffer and also high visibility. It's also very delicate presentations, and it's also very easy to keep the line off the water because it's so light. Now when you pull a level line off of the spool, your level line is going to have some degree of memory. The first thing that you need to deal with it is stretch, and you can just grab each segment and stretch out the line throughout its length, and then it's going to have almost no memory at all. Then you can just cut to the length that you want. You can just measure with your arms, like let's say 4 times for a 3.9 meter rod or a 13 feet rod, and then you're ready to pretty much start fishing. Now attaching a level line to a tenkara rod is also extremely simple. As you know, your tenkara rod doesn't have a loop at the end. It just has a braid called a lilian. And all you're gonna do is just make a simple overhand knot over the main part of the line. So go over once, and then you go through it. So all you have here, just a simple overhand knot. Here's the main line, here's the tag, and then you just tighten it, and you want to leave a 1-inch tag or so. That's going to be used later on to undo it and also make sure it doesn't slip. And then you're leaving the hard tip of the tenkara rod, and this is always very important when you're setting up. Always leave the hard tip inside. You go through it once, and then you get the lilian through this knot twice. There's going to be a little snake in there, and then you just tighten it down. And always leave the hard tip inside when you're doing this. Then you have a very secure knot. And also when you're going home, same thing, leave the hard tip inside, and then you just pull on the tag end of the line, and you're done. Then when you're done fishing and you want to put your rod away, very simple. Starting with the first segment out, you start pushing it in, and always hold your segments as close to the joint as possible. This is the widest part of the segment. I want to use it instead of using the thinner part of the segment because it's a little bit stronger. So you start pushing it in. Sometimes the pieces are going to feel a little bit more resistance, maybe because there's a little bit dust in it, or maybe because you pulled it too tight. If that ever happens, just holding very close to the joint, put some pressure in and push it in. That doesn't usually become an issue until the tip segments, which are a little bit thinner, a little bit more delicate. But holding close to the joint, just push it in. And then when you get to the tip segment, a lot of times that's going to be, you might be stuck. I mean, many times you might feel a little bit more stuck. All you want to do, holding the tip segment as close to the joint or as close to the end here as possible. Put some pressure in, You know, if it's very snug, for example, right now I pulled it tight, it's very, very snug, very tight. I'm just gonna hold it as close to the joint as I can, push it in, apply as much pressure as I can, pushing straight in, and don't put any sideways pressure. And then if it doesn't come, in this case I pulled it very tight and it's not going in, all you do is you do a little bit of tapping. Straight in, just kind of tap it. Okay, in this case I pulled it too tight, but usually tapping it will dislodge it, and there you go. So just tapping it and making sure not to put any pressure onto the sides, just doing some tapping, and then it's going to go in.